Hello, my name is Dr. Toya Constant, and today I'll be presenting to you the top 10 best practices for tutoring. As a tutor, you play a very intricate role in the student success of those in which you're collaborating with. These top 10 best practices will not only help you improve as a tutor, but hopefully make you a strong and positive role model for the students in which you're working with. For tip number one, successful tutors build strong personal relationships with their students. Personal relationships are foundational to student success. The more connected a student feels to his or her tutor, the more the tutor creates trust and respect. This is essential to encouraging student learning. As part of being a tutor with the ACES Institute, one of your jobs is going to be to foster that personal relationship with your student learner. While this does not mean disclosing your deepest, darkest, most personal secrets or experiences with your student, it does mean that you will engage in open and honest communication with your student, come on a consistent basis so that a trust can be built with your student learner, and you will also show them the utmost respect so that, again, a positive personal relationship can ensue. Further research, once a student feels that his or her tutor is a trusted collaborator or trusted adult, that this fosters a positive learning environment that will also lead to positive academic outcomes. Tip number two, successful tutors listen and communicate early and often with parents and teachers. When the tutor focuses on goal setting, creating benchmarks and planning, this sets students up for academic progress. Collaboration with stakeholders are key factors to student success. In other words, in order to be the best tutor, you should have open lines of communication with other stakeholders within that educational setting. Stakeholders can include the teachers, assistant teachers, administrators, and parents if available. This allows the tutor to establish if there are any goals that other stakeholders may have for the student, or to get insight into the student's behavior and academic process that they need to be aware of in order to make their experience with the student the most beneficial. Tip number three, successful tutors have specific content expertise. A successful tutor can make learning real, relevant, and rigorous. Such tutors are experts in their academic content. They know the subject's concepts, ideas, and problems inside and out. Tutors who make learning relevant to students' interests create more students who care about what they are learning. So the first part of this tip is that tutors should have specific content expertise. The benefit of being a college student is that you have already successfully completed your high school degree or equivalency. So therefore, the areas in which you explore with the younger learners are areas in which you already have prior experience. While you may not know each specific content area inside and out in the moment, you should make moves or make an effort to understand content so that you are able to teach it to your student learner. Not only should you be able to be an expertise in certain content, but you should be able to understand how the content applies to the students' real world settings. In other words, how is this particular area of content relevant in everyday life? Once this connection is made, students can move to caring more about what they're learning about because then they understand its applicability in the real world. Tip number 4, a successful tutor is patient. What is obvious or easy for you may not be so for your student. Learn not to show annoyance in your speech or body language. Working with student learners should help you improve your patience with working with the student population. Just because you learn and have strategies that apply to you does not mean that these strategies and learning processes apply to others. And at times we can become annoyed, and this annoyance can be exhibited through our speech or body language. If you are new to tutoring, be careful to be cognizant of how you're expressing these types of emotions if you're experiencing these in your sessions. It's okay to say that you're trying to improve your patience, but you do not want to express annoyance in your speech or body language while in the presence of your student learner. Tip number 5, a successful tutor is a good listener. Tutors should learn to pick up clues in students' speech that enable you to understand how he or she is really feeling. A good listener does not dominate the conversation. So typically in a tutoring session, it's okay for the tutor to ask the student learner how he or she is doing that day or how he or she is feeling about a certain task. Remember, this tenet of understanding emotional intelligence is also a big component of SEL learning. And we know that students who are able to communicate effectively how they are feeling in the moment regarding a certain task or objective also helps to lead them to processing through strategies that hopefully lead to positive academic outcomes. So, as part of understanding a student's feelings and allowing them to express these feelings, a tutor has to be a good listener. So, while you may be thinking of things to say to your student learner, also be mindful that being a good listener is a major part of being a successful tutor. And lastly, a good listener does not dominate the conversation. So while you may be an expert in the content area and an older individual with more knowledge as far as it pertains to academic and personal development, that does not mean that your expertise should dominate the conversation. Again, being a good listener is part of being a successful tutor. Tip number 6, a successful tutor is professional. Tutors should practice professional etiquette when on campus or organizational settings while working with students. This includes wearing work appropriate attire, arriving to sessions on time and on a consistent basis, communicating with stakeholders if there is a change in your circumstance, and abstaining from romantic work relationships. A successful tutor, again, is professional. So when you arrive at your campus or at the school in which you are working with your student learner, you want to make sure that you are upholding the highest standards of professionalism while there. Not only are you serving as a tutor, but you're also serving as a representative of the ACES Institute, the University of Houston, and yourself. You want to make a good, lasting impression, not only on the administrators there at the campus, but on the student learners who are observing you while you're there on campus. So, in order to be a successful tutor, tip number 6 holds that you should be a professional at all times. Tip number 7, a successful tutor is willing to share personal experiences. By sharing information about what you have encountered, the student may feel relieved that he or she is not alone. Sharing experiences and lessons learned goes a long way toward building trust and support. It also helps the student build self-confidence. So, as reiterated from the beginning of this training session, you should be able to communicate openly and honestly with your student learner. This makes a successful tutor. In addition to that, with the communication, you should be able to share personal experiences that help you become relatable to the student. Again, this does not mean sharing your deepest, darkest secrets or personal experiences with the student, but it does mean sharing that you too have received possibly a failing grade on a test, or that you know how it feels to work with a group when nobody listens to your suggestions. These are the types of experiences, academic experiences, that are worth sharing with your student learner so that one, you help to build that trust and support. Two, they help to feel relieved that he or she is not alone, that somebody else has experienced this, and so that this may be a normal occurrence. And that three, it also helps the student build self-confidence because now they know that what they're going through is not just an isolated event, that there are those who have gone through what they are experiencing and that they too can still be successful. So this leads to self-confidence. Again, tip number 7, a successful tutor is willing to share personal experiences. Tip number 8, a successful tutor is confident. You were chosen for qualities that enable you to be a good tutor and role model. However, having confidence also means having the courage to admit you don't know an answer. Be honest with your student. Tell them you need to do your homework and then follow through. He or she may feel better knowing you are not perfect. So, in other words, a successful tutor is confident. You have expertise in content area. You are able to identify positive learning strategies and processes that should be applied. You're aware of the SEL tenets and how understanding emotions and feelings regarding academic tasks and goals helps to lead to better academic outcomes. So all these things lead to a confident tutor. With that being said, you don't have to know all things about everything. And sometimes the best confidence to exude is when you don't know the answer to something and are able to admit it. Students then are able to understand that you're exercising being honest, and that this may also help to foster a more trusting relationship with them. The student may also feel better knowing that you're not perfect. And this may also allow them to not be quote unquote perfect and encourage this and will encourage them to delve into more rigorous academic tasks and goals so that they reach their optimal educational outcomes. Tip number 9. A successful tutor tries to get the student to do the work on their own. While you will be helping students prioritize their work and form positive learning strategies, successful tutors should try to get students to do the work on their own. Scaffold instructions for students and do not give answers only. Tip number 10, a successful tutor communicates with fellow tutors and the school faculty. Other tutors may be able to provide helpful information about the students' lives and can give you tips that may have not been considered. Tell teachers what is going on with the student's behavior and progress, and they may have strategies, ideas to improve your next session with that student. For example, the ACES Institute offers office hours with faculty mentors that can help you navigate certain behavioral and academic terrain that you may be exploring with your student learner. They also may give you strategies and tips and tricks that you may not have considered. Other peer tutors or fellow tutors can also offer this type of advice, but the biggest takeaway is that you have to be able to communicate. So again, while it may feel natural to keep what's going on in your session to yourself, in some cases, it's better to communicate some of the behavioral and academic um, experiences that you're having with your student learner, with others, such as faculty mentors or even peers, while not disclosing the student's personal information. Again, so that you can gain a different perspective, gain some insight, and possibly be able to explore opportunities to utilize different strategies that were not in use before. Again, tip number 10, a successful tutor communicates with fellow tutors and the school faculty. So now that the top 10 best practices for a successful tutor has concluded, the last thing in this training session are the characteristics of an effective tutor. So while you want to engage with the best practices, you also want to involve or develop these characteristics of an effective tutor while you're engaging with your student learners. These characteristics include empathy, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, understanding a different perspective. You also have to be honest. Again, this goes back to having open, honest communication. Telling your student you don't know something and then following up with the answer. You also have to express enthusiasm. If you're not enthusiastic about the learning, then 9 times out of 10, the student won't be either. This enthusiasm is expressed by showing up on time, being there consistently, having the expert content knowledge, exuding confidence while you're there in the sessions. Other characteristics include being a good listener, asking open-ended questions, encouraging independence or autonomy. So while you are there as a tutor to help foster learning strategies that encourage students to work on certain problems autonomously or independently, you want to make sure that you are providing all the steps in between to help them reach that independence. Other characteristics include being non-judgmental. This means not judging a student based on their attire, their language, their customs, their cultural background. So really having a non-judgmental perspective on the student when engaging in these tutoring sessions can help lead to better positive outcomes for that student learner. You should also be able to explain material in multiple ways. So going back to being patient, you as a tutor also have to be able to um, apply instruction that motivates your student learner. And each student is different. And so that may take some more communication, that may take understanding what motivates your student, that may take understanding the ways in which your student learns best. But as best practices for a tutor, you need to be able to apply different methods to instruction. Other characteristics include being patient, maintaining confidentiality, being a motivator. not only being encouraging and telling the student that they can do it, but also showing up and expressing that verbally when you're there engaged in the sessions. You should also allow for periods of silence. Sometimes when you ask your student learner open-ended questions, it may take them a while to process what they truly want to say. Sometimes this silence does not mean that they're being removed from the process, but that they're actually thinking. So at times, allow for those brief moments of silence in order for a student to respond to you. You also need to show respect, maintain professional boundaries, and lastly, have a true desire to help. If you have that characteristic of having a true desire to help, then being able to apply the foundations of SEL, incorporate the top 10 best practices of being a successful tutor, while engaging in developing the characteristics of an effective tutor, you will be able to reach optimal outcomes with your student learner. But at the core of that, again, is the desire to help. So as long as you have a passion to see others achieve, to truly want to, implore equity within the educational system and to make a positive impact on the lives of students, this will help drive all those other tenets and areas in which you'll focus on as a tutor, and hopefully leads to the optimal success of your student learner. In summary, you should, from this training, be able to understand the best practices of being a successful tutor and the correct characteristics of an effective tutor. With that being said, that concludes this training. Thank you.